Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 157th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm great, Cam. It is game week.
Oh, yeah.
It's here.
Yo, I've been ready for it.
By the time you're hearing this, it's going to be tomorrow. Maybe even day
That's
up.
confusing. Oh, the game will be tomorrow by the time people hear this.
Yeah.
Like, when you're hearing this, it is now tomorrow, currently.
That's
what you said.
Inception kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry for the confusion.
Yeah, it's game week.
It is.
Central Michigan, game 1. Mizzou football is back, folks. We are going to, on this week's episode, talk about the depth chart, preview week 1 against Central Michigan, give our predictions. Then we're going to do, should we start with the 7-on-7 draft? I'm making an executive decision. We're starting with the 7-on-7 draft.
Wow. That's radical.
And then, because that's kind of like a preseason type segment.
Okay. All right.
And then we'll dive into week 1.
That sounds great.
The preseason will be behind us. Before we do all of that, though, thank you to all of our subscribers over on YouTube. We blew past 300 subscribers last week, and we just appreciate all of you, and we appreciate everyone that's listening on podcast services. We would love it if you could leave a review over there. Let us know what you think. And yeah, if you're just watching on YouTube and aren't subscribed, it would help us out a lot if you did click on the subscribe button. Okay, so 7-on-7 draft. So we're going to go through, if you haven't listened to this segment before, it's one of our favorites every year. We are going to draft 2 teams of Mizzou players. The catch is these teams are like the video game NFL Street, in that the players have to play both sides of the ball. So whoever you draft at quarterback is going to have to play defense somewhere. And, of course, whoever you draft at linebacker is going to have to play on the offense. So, Producer Cameron, do you have like a virtual coin that you can flip for us?
I wrote a number down.
Oh, okay.
It's either 1 or a 2.
Okay.
1 or a 2, okay.
Yeah, yeah, like a coin flip. I get it.
Who won last year?
Who won? I don't know. We did a Twitter poll, and probably Kyle won.
Why'd you say that?
I don't think I've won one of those Twitter polls.
It's rigged.
You probably have.
Kyle won last year, we're going to say.
Okay. I was going to use that to decide who called it, but...
Go right ahead.
Okay. I'll call it heads.
It's a 1 or a 2.
Okay, I'll call it 2.
It is a 2.
Oh,
okay.
no.
I did choose to defer.
What?
Yeah,
I feel like that's a rule that we should have established.
I won the toss. I choose to defer. I don't know who Kyle thinks is the slam dunk number 1
You're
pick.
kidding me.
He said that. He said something like that last week, and he talked about you said something about how important the number 1 pick would be.
I feel like there's a pretty clear best choice.
All right, go ahead and take him.
All right. For the number 1 pick of the draft, for this player is going to play offense and defense. The best player on the team has to be Sean Robinson.
Okay.
Because he's going to play quarterback and safety.
Yes, that's actually an excellent choice. He was my quarterback last year, and I was ahead of the curve because he ended up being a safety. I had him as a safety before Mizzou football had him as a safety.
Wow.
I still lost the Twitter poll. But, yeah, excellent choice. Yeah, he was definitely on my short list of players to draft. But
now you've got 2 picks in a row.
2 picks in a row. First one's pretty easy. I'm, again, just like you were, looking at players that naturally have a tendency to play both sides of the ball, and a player with a history of that is Daniel Parker Jr. So I'm going to go ahead and start my roster with Daniel Parker Jr. He'll be my tight end, and he'll also be on the defensive line. And then with my second pick, I am going to choose most athletic player on the team, Mookie Cooper.
Good pick.
He's going to be kind of my Swiss Army knife offensive weapon, and I think he's fast enough to play a little cornerback.
Little corner, all right. So now I've got 2 picks, and I'm going to secure Trajan Jeffcoat. And he will play O-line and D-line, of course.
Excellent choice.
Do I want to have that dominant line? I think I'm going to... Yeah, I think I'm just going to go ahead and pick Kobe Whiteside.
Okay.
Get that line shored up.
I don't even have my short list of players in front of me. I'm like going off the top of my head here. You picked Sean Robinson. Okay, so I've got a lineman in Daniel Parker Jr. I've got Mookie Cooper, and I am going to take just an all-around athlete and defensive stopper, and I'm gonna take maybe the best player on the Mizzou football roster, Martez Manuel.
Good pick. What position is he playing again?
He's going to be a safety and then also play wide receiver. We'll see how it all shakes out.
Okay.
At the first practice. Then I'm up again. And I'm going to just go ahead and take Tyler Beatty.
I do love Tyler Beatty.
Uh-huh.
All right, good picks. This might be a little bit of an interesting pick, but hopefully it'll look better once the season gets going. And I'm going to pick Chris Abrams-Drain. And he's going to play wide receiver and cornerback. And we'll get to this in a little bit with some depth chart notes.
News and notes. Yes.
That Chris Abrams-Drain has been looking really good, and he may actually start on the defense. So I will pick him as kind of a all-around athlete. And so I still need a lineman. I still need another wide receiver. And I need a running back. And I'm going to go ahead and lock up Dominic Lovett, who's going to play wide receiver and cornerback.
Good choice. I need to get somebody to snap the ball and block. I'm not overly concerned about this player's defensive line abilities. I just want somebody that can slow down your 2 defensive linemen. So I'm going to go ahead and draft Michael Mayetti.
He can definitely snap the ball.
Yes.
No doubt about that.
And I get another pick here, right?
Yep.
Okay. I am going to draft Blaze Aldridge.
Good pick.
We'll figure out the offensive side of the ball with him later. He's going to be an offensive lineman.
All right, so I've got 2 picks left. I need a lineman, and I need a running back who will also play linebacker. And so for that position, I'm going to pick Dawson Downing. He's going to play running back and linebacker.
Interesting.
And for my last pick, I'm going to pick Isaiah McGuire.
Excellent choice. And I have just one spot left to fill on my squad, and that is quarterback. I was able to wait on that since you took Sean Robinson early. And I'm going to say I will take Tyler Macon. I need a little bit more athleticism at the quarterback position in this type of format where they're going to be playing defense.
Yep.
You've got that handled with Robinson. I'm going to try to do the same thing there with Tyler Macon. So I think 2 pretty good squads. I'll be honest with you, I like mine better.
Tell us who your team is.
So I have, in the order that I picked them, Daniel Parker Jr., Mookie Cooper, Martez Manuel, Tyler Beatty, Michael Maietti, Blaze Aldridge, and Tyler Macon.
I've got Sean Robinson, Trajan Jeffcoat, Kobe Whiteside, Chris Abrams-Drain, Dominic Lovett, Dawson Downing, and Isaiah McGuire.
My team would destroy yours in real life.
I don't know about that. Let the folks decide.
Yeah, last year we, producer Cameron and I collaborated on just a really cool graphic that like displayed the players on that, how they would actually line up on the field. So we'll try to get that together again.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And post that on Twitter with a poll. I need you guys to come through for me on this. I feel like I'm always on the losing end of these draft Twitter polls. So maybe I can get one this year.
We'll see.
All right. We'll leave it up to Twitter. Now we can move on to the week's news. We've just got some depth chart news and notes, as Kyle said earlier. So we will jump into that and talk about any injuries going into the week 1 matchup.
All right, so speaking of my boy Chris Abrams-Drain, on the depth chart, he is starting at the nickel position over Chris Sheeran. I definitely thought that was a position that Allie Green might play, but it looks like he's still at cornerback. So Chris Sheeran is a guy who opted out last year from COVID. So definitely that's an important position, especially in a Wilkes defense where the secondary is very important. They may play 5 secondary players at the same time quite a bit. So that nickel position is very important. So I think we'll see a lot of Chris Abrams-Drain. Just fantastic athlete. Started at wide receiver, moved to cornerback, and now he's playing at the nickel. So they are trusting him to. I mean, he's had to learn that position quickly, but it sounds like he's done it really well. Speaking of cornerback, on the depth chart, it did have a little or symbol on both positions here, on both sides of the field here, but it looks like Ish Burdine and Ennis Rakestraw were held on to the starting spots for both cornerback positions. So that means that Caleb Evans and Allie Green are the backups. I'm using air quotes, but you'll see all 4 of those guys a ton, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, probably other people predicted the same thing, but we definitely in our position previews said that we expected all 4 of those guys to play a lot, and they're not to necessarily be a clear-cut starters out of those 4. And so I'm super happy that that's the case.
Yeah.
Being able to have that position just locked down, fresh legs all the time.
Yeah, because think of what that position might have looked like without those Tulsa transfers. It was going to be looking pretty shallow, especially if there was an injury or something that could have been pretty bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, one more note on the secondary. It's not really depth chart related, but Jalen Carlisle is the starting safety, but he is suspended for the first half of this game because of a hit he made last year against Mississippi State or whatever in the second half of that game. So we'll see Jelani Williams will get the start as strong safety for the first half.
Interesting. Okay.
Another depth chart thing, and you just never really know how much you can trust the depth chart, honestly. It's more just like a guideline, and honestly, it doesn't even really matter who starts sometimes. Yeah. It's like you're going to see all different kinds of packages and different players out there and stuff, but Chance Looper was listed first at slot receiver over Bannister and Mookie Cooper. There were ors for all 3 of those guys, so you'll see all 3 of them a lot, but it still seems significant that Chance Looper is listed first over the veteran Bannister, over the transfer Cooper, so that is pretty interesting.
And Cooper is dealing with injury. I think the latest I saw, he's still questionable to even play.
That is true.
In week 1, so I don't know if that would look any different on the depth chart if he was good to go. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Last thing I wrote down was the Montana State transfer Conor Wood. Seems to be the first offensive lineman off the bench here. He's listed as second string behind left guard and right tackle. So looks like if they have any injuries or any reason that an offensive lineman needs to come off the field, looks like Conor Wood's going to be going in.
Yeah, he ought to see some snaps just to give guys a breather probably. I did think it was slightly interesting to see Daniel Parker Jr. and Nico Hay are like co-starters. They just are separated by an or, so kind of 1A, 1B. And that perfectly matches what we know about those two players. Daniel Parker Jr. going to be in to block more, and but he can catch the ball. And then Nico Hay more of the receiving threat at tight end. And then Messiah Swinson was like he was the one that didn't have an or. He was like the backup to those two.
So, assuming things go really well for Mizzou in this game and Connor Bazelak doesn't have to play 4 quarters, who's the second quarterback that comes in?
Macon and Cook just have an or between the two of them.
Yeah. Who do you think it's going to be?
In week 1, I guess it would probably be Tyler Macon. But I really think they're going to try to preserve his red shirt. So they kind of know what they have in Brady Cook as a backup, I feel like. So letting Tyler Macon just jump out there when the opportunity arises seems to make sense for me.
Okay.
Even though if I don't even know if this is how this works. This might be just like an idiotic comment, but if Connor Bazelak were to like go down with an injury, then I think we see Brady Cook come in.
Okay. So Brady Cook's maybe a little safer.
Yeah.
But Tyler Macon a higher ceiling.
Yeah, and if you've blown out a team, I say let Macon get some play.
Okay. Cool. I hope we get to see somebody else other than Bazelak. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's not my prediction. Spoiler alert for later.
Quick little vaccine update. Mizzou is officially over the 85% threshold, and that is notable because the SEC announced that if teams don't have enough players, games are going to be forfeited without reschedule, and that seems extreme, but think about how much that happened last year. Like, I'm pretty sure Mizzou only played like 2 or 3 games that were actually like they played them when they were scheduled because they had so much just schedule madness going on. So, right. And obviously COVID is maybe a little bit different than it was this time last year, but that's definitely a much steeper penalty for not being able to field a team this year. Also, just a couple notes about vaccinated players. The team only has to test unvaccinated players unless a vaccinated player is showing symptoms, and vaccinated players are not subject to contact tracing. So a couple of perks for getting over that 85% threshold. There's just a lot less testing, a lot better chance you're going to be able to field a team.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and from a player's standpoint, a lot better chance you're not going to have to sit out. Like, there was lots of stories last year about players having to miss games when they didn't even test positive and felt completely fine, but that because of contact tracing, which is understandable, but not going to have to worry about that if you're vaccinated.
Yep.
Sounds good to me. All right, are we ready to dive into Central Michigan?
I'm ready.
Okay. Central Michigan, we talked about them a little bit last week in the overall season preview. They are coached by friend of the SEC, Jim McElwain. He was formerly the head coach at Florida before he was run out of town after not living up to expectations. But he may not even make the trip to Columbia. Unfortunately, he had appendix surgery, and they are planning on him being available to coach the team on Saturday, but...
That'd be wild.
Yeah.
When did he have a surgery?
Like...
Today or yesterday?
Yeah, like in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, that would be pretty surprising to see him on the sidelines on Saturday.
Well, the assistant coach that was like gonna take over in case, or like the coach that's like running the team as of right now, said they plan on him being there.
Okay.
They're hoping this is just a 24-hour turnaround for him.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Maybe they could get him from the hospital bed.
They could pull a Hugh Freeze and have him up in the press box in a hospital bed. Oh, man. Classic. Yeah, that would suck for him, though, if he wasn't able to make the first game of the season, especially getting, like, I feel like for all the coaches and players, getting to be back out there in front of fans, again, some of these players for the first time, in a significant way is going to be pretty meaningful, I think.
I mean, if he's not on the sideline, what kind of difference does that make?
I don't know. Perhaps, going on the road, first game of the season, having the head coach there to kind of like support everyone is going to be probably meaningful. But in general, I think most head coaches, and I don't know, Jim McElwain's an offensive guy. I don't know his involvement in the play calling exactly. I mean, that would be devastating for Coach Drinkwitz to miss a game because of something like that, because he calls the plays.
Yeah, I feel like this assistant coach that's would probably be calling plays if he weren't there. I think they've worked together in the past, and coach speak, they would tell you we've prepared, and we're going to be fine. You know, we know what we're doing, we know what the game plan is. But if that's really the case, I don't think we'll really know for sure. But it can't be a good thing for Central Michigan, I wouldn't think, if he wasn't there.
Or even just like as far as their preparation leading up to the game, it's probably not helpful. All right, so on to the actual team. Unfortunately, we do not know who their starting quarterback is going to be. It could be one of 3 guys, apparently. We talked in the season preview about Washington transfer Jacob Sermon. He, I guess, just hasn't really won the job, unfortunately for him. So they could be turning to redshirt freshman Daniel Richardson, who's a little bit smaller, more mobile quarterback. And then another redshirt freshman named Tyler Pape, who is more prototypical big arm, 6'4" quarterback who actually is more mobile than Sermon. So he might be their quarterback of the future. If they're wanting to just go ahead and turn it over to him, we might see him. It's possible we might see multiple quarterbacks play in this game.
Yeah, this is about as nebulous of a situation as you can possibly imagine for a quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably sucks for these guys too. I mean, I don't even know if they know who's going to play, which can't be good. But I don't know. You mentioned Daniel Richardson. He was the quarterback last year. 5'10", 205. He completed 64% of passes, had 714 yards and 4 touchdowns. And at Washington, Jacob Sermon, I mean, he's 6'5", 230. He's the prototypical like NFL-style quarterback when you think of like his body type. But has just done nothing. At Washington, he was there for like 3 years. I think in 2020, he completed 1 pass for 9 yards. So he just hasn't really done it on the field yet, even though when you look at him, he probably looks like the most ready-to-go guy. And honestly, like, I don't even think that the quarterback is the most important piece of what they want to do in their offense, and maybe that's why they haven't, like, found a guy. But because the running game is really what they want to lean on, but it's still important to have a competent quarterback.
Yeah, so they're going to lean on running back Lou Nichols. He was the MAC co-freshman of the year last year. They had another running back, I can't remember his name, but he's out for the year with injury.
Kobe Lewis.
Yes, he was going to be the starter by all accounts, but now is unavailable. But Nichols is more than capable of handling the load on the ground, and I think they'll mix in at least one other running back, maybe more than that. They definitely, last year, they kind of played it safe. And tried to establish the run early and definitely lean on it. But they had kind of iffy quarterback play and weren't really able to take many chances. They just were very vanilla and standard in their play calling most of the time last year. I know McElwain has said he wants to open up the passing game a little bit more and try to take more shots downfield. So I mean, that was all they did last year, was establish the run, then try to get some deep passes off of the run game. I don't know. I think it's not great that Missouri doesn't know who the quarterback's going to be, but at the same time, the reason that's the case is not because Central Michigan has 2 just incredible quarterbacks that they just can't decide between. It's the opposite.
Because nobody's winning the job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, they are going to run a lot of Wildcat, too. And so, I mean, like I said, the quarterback position just isn't as important to this team as it would be to pretty much every other team, just because of their play calling. And, I mean, we haven't even mentioned probably their most impactful player, Khalil Pimpleton. And he will kind of do it all. Yeah. I mean, he will be the quarterback potentially at times in this game if they're going to run it out of the Wildcat. Last year, he caught 26 passes, rushed 16 times, and then completed 5 of 8 pass attempts, including a touchdown. So he sounds like kind of a do-it-all kind of player.
He also returns punts.
Yeah, so he's definitely a very dangerous threat, and Missouri's going to have to know where he is at all times.
Yeah, he transferred to Central Michigan from Virginia Tech. He is a very just solid all-around playmaker. Like you said, he's going to line up everywhere in this game and throughout the whole season.
And keep in mind, some of these stats sound pretty underwhelming, but I'm pretty sure Central Michigan only played like 5 or 6 games due to COVID. So per game, some of these stats are pretty impressive whenever you consider what they did. But assuming Mizzou is taking control of this game and not like struggling. I think Khalil Pimpleton is going to be a really fun player to watch. I think it'll be interesting to see all the different kinds of things that they might have him do in this game, because this is a home run opportunity for a program like Central Michigan. They've got talent. I don't think it's impossible that they could beat Mizzou.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't think they will, but if this thing is even remotely competitive, they're going to pull out all the stops. And why wouldn't you?
Oh yeah.
To beat an SEC team on the road, that's a huge deal.
Yeah. Pimpleton's going to be fun to watch. I think all season long he'll be kind of one of those non-Power 5 guys that shows up on ESPN or whatever on highlight reels and stuff. As far as Central Michigan's defense, it's not too terribly scary in my opinion. They do have a very good pass rusher in Troy Hairston. He actually started his career as a walk-on, and last year was the MAC Defensive Player of the Year. So incredible job by him. He is just ferocious, I guess is the best way to put it, coming off the end. He is just going to go all out every single play trying to blow up the opponent's backfield.
Mm-hmm.
So watch out for him.
Yeah, they're really good at defensive end. They have a lot of youth at D-tackle, though. Last year they had a very solid run defense. They could take a hit there this year that with youth and injuries that they've sustained on the interior of the line. I would definitely like to see Missouri take advantage of that. If you can't run against Central Michigan, then it might be kind of a scary season. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think they can take advantage of that. But they've got to definitely keep an eye on Hairston.
Yeah, I could see if this game was later in the season and Mizzou's offense had gelled a little bit more, I think they would not have any problem in this game. With it just being so early, a lot of times defenses are a little bit ahead of offenses, and I could kind of see that happening in this game. If Missouri struggles a little bit running the ball, if the offensive line can't really get that push, if obviously there's no Larry Roundtree back there, so if Tyler Beatty and company can't quite get it going, then if Missouri's kind of like forced to turn to the pass when they're not really ready to, I could see that being a problem. And then Hairston might be able to get some sacks and stuff like that. But I think Missouri will be able to do enough on the ground to open things up in the passing game. It may take a quarter to really get going for both offenses. Hopefully for Central Michigan, much longer than one quarter. But for Missouri, I think after a quarter, they'll be able to kind of feel it out, get things going, throw the ball around a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think Bazelak will be able to have a good game.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the real opportunity for Mizzou is through the air. I think Central Michigan's pass defense is not very good. Obviously, their pass rush could, like you said, present some issues, but if we can contain their edge rushers, I really don't think it's going to be an issue to pass the ball consistently whatsoever. Defensively, I wouldn't be shocked if it takes Missouri a little bit of time just to gel. It's a new defensive coordinator. We're running a completely different defense. Carlisle is not going to be out there for the first half. I don't think Central Michigan's going to go for 300 yards in the first half or anything like that, but I just wouldn't be surprised if it takes a little bit of time for Missouri to work out the kinks. Got some new players that are going to be relied upon. And same thing, I guess, with the offense, too. I mean, in some ways, we have a lot of consistency, but I wouldn't expect to see Mookie Cooper necessarily light the world on fire in this first game. Coming off an injury, he didn't play. I don't think he played at all last year at Ohio State, did he? So,
no.
He hasn't, played in a game in over a year. So some of these things just may take time for Missouri to kind of gel and figure out what they want to do. And if they're in control of this game, then maybe it'll take a little bit of time just to kind of play around with some sets. They might even try and stay a little bit vanilla. I don't know. They may not have that luxury, so we'll have to see on that.
If Missouri's gonna if any players on Missouri's squad are gonna kind of take over the game, it's gonna be the returning guys on offense. I think it's gonna be Tyler Beatty making plays, and kind of he could very easily come out and say "Hey, I'm the guy here at running back, and I may not be Larry Roundtree, but I can do okay, and I can be a starting running back in the SEC." And at the same time, I think we could see Bazelak just kind of rely on Dove and Chisholm, and just because that's what he's familiar with, and he knows those guys are going to be reliable for him.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know that I see Central Michigan cornerbacks being able to stop 6'5" Kiki Chisholm,
No.
6'4" Toski Dove, whatever
Yeah.
he is. Eventually, even if it takes a little bit of time, eventually they're not going to be able to stop those guys consistently. I think Mizzou is going to be able to impose their will, even if it takes a little bit of time. It might they might be able to do that immediately. I don't even know.
Yeah.
It might be first drive, we score in 3 plays. It might be one of those kind of things. That would probably make us feel a little bit better. Just
Right.
to, anytime you're coming off an off season and you haven't seen the team play in a while, there's new guys, and you just want to see everything work immediately.
Yeah, and Missouri scoring touchdowns and not settling for field goals is going to be huge in any of these games that are. I mean, there's like 2 games all season that are like slam dunk wins, SEMO and North Texas. So any of the other games, if you start settling for field goals, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So Missouri has to, and I would be happy with them taking some chances and rolling the dice a little bit to try to get in the end zone rather than settling for field goals.
Yeah, I mean, there's really 2 main things I want to see in the game on Saturday, and one of those is obviously what the new defense looks like. But the other thing is just how does Mizzou do in the red zone? That's something we've talked about quite a bit in the last few weeks, is just how bad Missouri was in the red zone last year. They left a lot on the field. They left a lot of points out there. I mean, thank God we have Harrison Mevis to kind of clean up some of that. But you just, like you said, you don't want to be kicking field goals. And you have to score touchdowns. And I don't know if that's Nico Hayes stepping up or some kind of reliable end zone threat. We've got to be able to finish in the red zone more. And so I definitely want to see them be able to do that against Central Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, if the red zone scoring continues to be an issue this season, I would like to see them maybe give Bazelak more room to run around the goal line with some like read option type stuff. Just, I mean, if you start to struggle there, I say just start throwing stuff at the wall, see what happens.
I like to think that Coach Drinkwitz obviously knows that was a huge problem last year, and he's spent the offseason figuring out how we can improve it, because I definitely don't think that it's the weapons.
No.
I definitely think that the weapons are there. If they can find the X's and O's to finish the job, I think that they'll be able to do that. So hopefully they've really examined how they can improve that and do so.
Jumping back to Missouri's defense, I think if they can just avoid giving up like a home run play, then I don't think they'll have too much trouble.
Yeah.
So just keep everything in front of them, and then just kind of clamp down in the red zone. I really don't see Central Michigan really having the athletes or the execution to really manufacture offense.
I don't either.
I feel like it's going to be kind of a little bit all or nothing for them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I definitely think we could see some trickeration, especially in the Wildcat. That can be really hard to prepare against. And I would not be surprised to see them do some crazy stuff, have their wide receivers passing the ball, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anything can happen when you line up in the Wildcat. So there definitely could be 1 or 2 of those plays where Missouri gives up a huge play. Maybe it isn't a touchdown, but a 50 or 60-yard gain because they just didn't know how to react to something that Central Michigan did. But I agree with you. I don't think that they're going to be able to do that consistently enough throughout the game to be able to hang with Mizzou.
So I'm feeling like I'm ready to give my official prediction.
Okay.
I think Missouri will strike first. I think they'll build a lead. I think Missouri will kind of always be up by a touchdown or 10 points. But I don't think it's ever going to be incredibly comfortable. I think Central Michigan will hang around. I think they'll have enough explosive plays to put up some points no matter who the quarterback is. So I think the game will feel easier than the final score here indicates, but I've got Missouri winning 31-24.
Oof.
But I think it'll be a little bit easier on the nerves than that sounds. I think Missouri will be up by 10-ish most of the game, and it'll just be a little bit closer than we're comfortable with at the end, but we'll be able to live with it.
I would certainly hope we're walking into the Kentucky game next week with a little bit more confidence. But, I mean, that's certainly in the range of outcomes. It's not impossible for it to be a close game. I think Missouri is going to win 35-17. I think initially I thought that there was a chance Central Michigan could hang around a little bit, but the more I really just kind of dove into what they have returning and, what they do well, what they don't do well, I just think Missouri has the edge in pretty much almost every category, and I think they'll just be able to pull away.
That's fine by me. Yeah, 35-17. That's a pretty good score. Pretty good prediction. I like that. I think it'll just be a little bit closer than we're comfortable with, but it'll be okay. Everything will be fine.
I'm so ready to see the Mizzou Tigers on my television screen.
Absolutely.
I wish that neither one of us are going to be able to make the game this weekend. I kind of am bummed out about that because I know that there's been a push about attendance, but we will certainly do our part later this season.
Yeah.
Just couldn't make it this weekend, but we'll certainly be watching on TV.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you are attending the game, we appreciate you showing up and making some noise. There's going to be some big-time recruits in attendance, so we want to show up and show those guys that the fan base is behind this team and this coaching staff. Like you said, I wish we were able to make it. We'll have to get up there for a future game.
It does look like it's not going to be quite as hot as we thought.
Yeah, thank goodness.
I think it's going to be like mid-80s, maybe even a little bit cooler than that. So it should be a pretty comfortable day.
Yeah, not too bad at all. Who do you think gets the first score for Missouri's offense?
I think it's going to be a Tyler Beatty touchdown run.
I like that. Makes sense. I won't even give a different prediction. That's it's too perfect. Okay, yeah. So tell us what you think in the comments. Am I crazy? Is it going to be a blowout? I don't know. I can't just be quite that confident yet.
I think there's part of me that, after the game and we win by 5 touchdowns, we're just going to be like, why were we so conservative? Like, why were we so scared of this game? I don't know. I think it's just that first game jitters. Yeah. There's a lot riding on the season, as there always is. So
a lot of unknowns still for both teams. Yeah.
But I think there's a very, very real possibility that we're just like, that didn't really make sense that we were so conservative. But it's kind of one of those situations where we'll be very happy to be wrong. Yeah. So,
yeah, there's definitely a scenario where Missouri just like doesn't have to settle for any field goals and is just like finding the end zone repeatedly and has like a 21-point quarter and just kind of blows it wide open. Mm-hmm. I would be happy if that happens, but I just can't see Missouri firing on all cylinders quite this early in the season against an okay opponent.
Yeah.
If this was, SEMO or more of a cupcake, then I'd be all for that.
Yeah. But no injuries, please.
That would be very good. That's a key to the game for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we did our 7-on-7 draft. We got our Central Michigan preview done. It's a little bit of a shorter episode compared to the last couple of weeks.
I know. It seems like we've talked about everything we could possibly talk about at this point.
Yeah.
It's just time to play the game.
Yeah.
What was that?
I couldn't be more excited.
What? He looked at me, so I nodded.
Oh, okay.
He's approving whatever you were about to say.
I thought I heard something weird. All right. You got anything else for the folks?
I don't think so. I'm just ready for some football.
I'm ready for it. I'm so excited. All right, everybody. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Lee, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, and 430 Horse. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week after a win.
Football time.